All right, we're back. It's that time again. Good vibes time. I'm Martin Falls. Debbie Cox DeNova is here, and we always have great topics. She always gives us a good topic to talk about. And today we're going to talk about mastering relationships. Okay, all right. So, a lot of people want to know, how the heck do you master a relationship?
Right. It's so true. And you know what? This is a huge problem in America. By the way, this information comes from Dr. Andrea and Jonathan Taylor Cummings.
Mhm.
And we're going to talk about 4 skills and 4 habits of couples who go the long haul. Because everybody, especially when you're getting into a marriage, you have hopes and dreams for lasting the long haul. And there's something that happens along the way that prevents that from happening for about half. And this is a problem that is actually damaging health. It's more detrimental to health than obesity and lack of exercise at this point. It's detrimental to the mental health of the children that are involved in families that break up. Like 10 to 15% of teenagers are more likely to have mental health issues from a broken home family. So, this is an issue that we get to take head on by learning how to master relationships through 4 skills and 4 habits. Now, it's important or it's helpful to think about the Japanese art of kintsugi. Are you familiar?
Mhm.
Okay, so kintsugi, for those of you who have not heard of it, it's when you have broken art or pottery, and they take a lacquer, a gold lacquer, and they repair the cracks in the pottery or the art and put it on display as symbolism for the importance of and the dignity of repair. And so in psychotherapy, we talk about the art of repair and rupture. In every single relationship, you're going to have those moments of rupture, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes they're small ruptures, like, I don't know, you're in front of a group of people and you tell a disparaging story that kind of paints your partner in a bad light and they get a
Mhm.
little upset about that. You forget a birthday. And then sometimes there are big ruptures, like infidelity, right? And
Mhm.
so the ruptures themselves do not dictate whether the relationship is going to fall apart or not. There are lots of relationships where there are gigantic ruptures repeatedly all throughout the
Mhm.
relationship and they stay, right? And then there are other relationships where there are these tiny little ruptures and the partners go their separate
Mhm.
ways. Now, what is the skill of repair is what we're talking about here. And this requires 4 habits, 4 skills. Okay. Now, when we talk about the habits, we're talking about getting over hurdles that come into the relationship. Okay. So the first one, according to Dr. Andrea and Dr. Jonathan, is be curious, not critical. So whenever you have a situation where there's a rupture, you get upset. Instead of going straight into deciding the worst case scenario, it's about giving generosity to your partner
Mhm.
and actually putting down your decisions or your assumptions about what's happening and get curious about what might be happening for the other
Mhm.
person. Okay. Number 2 is be careful, not crushing. Now, we talked about contempt in relationships, right? Contempt is a killer, it erodes relationships. So, when you are in a disagreement with your partner, being able to offer a spirit of care and understanding that you are both on the same side of the table against the problem, the issue, versus being on this opposite side of the table against each
Mhm.
other. So, having that care and connection. Number 3 is ask. Don't assume. This speaks back to getting over the hurdle of making a decision that is disparaging, mistrust. So you ask and you explore with the other person, recognizing that there are separate realities. We've talked about this so many times. Not all of us are living in the same reality. And so finding out what reality your partner is coming from versus your own reality and trying to make peace with that, because people can bear differences. We can bear being in partnerships long term with someone who is of a different political party,
Mhm.
or someone who has aggravating friends or who likes to do different things. It's the feeling of alone, being alone in the relationship, a feeling of invalidation of our own reality, or that our reality is not important to the other person. Whenever you get into a situation there, and they say, people go where they are welcomed, but they stay where they are valued. When someone feels valued, even in the differences, that one statement, and this is one statement that really needs to be held up in a relationship. It's really like one of the things that you can say on a repeated basis that will really fortify your relationship. And that is, I understand. You
Mhm.
may not agree, and you may not come to a situation where you see life exactly the same way or that you get your way. But just knowing that your partner understands where you're coming from or why you're upset or why you view things the same way helps you to not feel alone within the relationship.
And I understand, so it takes the explosion out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's a validation of your perspective, even if they don't agree, right? And then the fourth thing is connect before you correct. We always want to offer the constructive feedback right away, right? And it's really important to know that the connection is needed before the other person can even often hear us. So, something that I talk to my clients sometimes about is making a physical connection before you even start talking about the problem. So, maybe you're actually upset with each other, but you're spooning, or maybe you're upset with each other, but you're holding hands and looking at each other. It's a reminder that we're on the same side. And again, it's us against the problem, not us against each other. So connection before you correct. Now, all of these things require a certain number of skills, and we'll talk about that after the break. But the main thing here is to remember that when it comes to your partnership, there are definitely going to be differences. There are definitely going to be those moments of rupture. And really, what signals emotional maturity in life is your ability to repair, is your ability to understand outside of your own perspective and actually honor and validate what your partner is going through, even as you hold your own validation of your own perspective as well.
If you're negotiating with your number one client,
Yeah.
you're not going to be screaming across the table and doing things. You're going to be absorbing
Yeah.
and sucking up some things
Yeah.
if they're coming at you with some different things. Why should that be any different with your partner at home?
Exactly. It's about conflict resolution skills, right? It's about making sure that whenever you have a rupture, expecting, first of all, that ruptures are going to happen. Now, yeah, would it be fantastic to have a relationship where there were never any ruptures? Sure, but that's not real life, right? In real life, what really makes a solid, wonderful, amazing relationship is your ability to jump these hurdles together. And as we talked about, vasopressin bond through the experience, right? So there's that bonding effect that happens, that neurochemical vasopressin that is released within the both of you whenever you get to the other side of the obstacle together. So being able to go, okay, well, here's a hurdle. Let's get through it, right? And so there are 4 skills that are involved in doing that. And the first one is apologizing. Now, apologizing really is, as we know, an admission that, okay, I was wrong in this area. This can be extremely challenging for someone who already has self-worth issues because an apology is sort of, if you're already feeling beat down, like you're already feeling like your worth is low, it can feel almost impossible to say, oh, and also I was too brazen in this. I was too, it can feel as though you are actually knocking yourself down even lower. And it's hard to imagine when you have low self-worth issues. It's hard to imagine that on the other side of that they're actually going to be more bonded to you. Like it makes it feel as though like I won't be worthy even more if I admit to this. So a lot of people will dig their heels into their position, even though they already know that an apology is actually needed. Being able to apologize sincerely within the context of a relationship is extremely
Well,
powerful.
let me ask you, what if your partner never apologizes and you're always apologizing just to end the water? Don't you have a little contention once you leave that you're
Yes.
always apologizing?
Yes, so this speaks. I'm glad you said that. This speaks to the importance of direct communication and honoring your authentic boundaries within yourself. Because what happens is couples, and a lot of couples, you'll see it a lot, they'll suppress these experiences where they know for a fact, like I was not in the wrong, but I apologized to keep the bond and the bridge. I didn't want to like to keep the peace, and then they'll sort of tuck it away, and it turns into this cold fury. So people think that over time in a relationship, it's natural for you to stop looking up when your partner enters the room, stop being engaged when they tell you about their day. Like they think that's just a natural progression of relationship. But actually, it's often a signal that you're like, it's a cold fury that's happening. You suppressed some anger and you forgot about it. And now it's an associated thing between you and your partner. And you don't know why, but you just don't have the same feelings. And that's often because you're not being direct about the communications. If you find yourself apologizing whenever it is not really your fault, it's time for you to actually say, like, I don't really think this is a time when I should apologize,
I'm
right?
laughing as you talk because I've had a couple of instances where, my girlfriend would say, tell me about your day.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I just had a 12-hour day. I don't want to tell you about 12 hours.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So being able to have those conversations, because again, for her, that's a way of connecting. Like, I want to
Right.
get to know your day, and for you, you're trying to just like disconnect from your day and actually be maybe with her. So those communications where it's like you understand from her perspective and vice versa. So apologizing is important, but also forgiving, actually accepting a person's forgiveness, being able to separate out that sometimes people that you love and that you care about, good people, do what can be perceived as bad things because maybe they're not because they're bad, but because they're tired or they are worried or they are sad or whatever it is, right? And so being able to forgive them and actually give them the generosity of looking at them from the best perspective that
They had a bad day.
exactly.
Yeah.
Number 3 is being able to teach. Okay. So someone who's really a master at teaching understands how difficult it is for the mind to accept new ideas. And so they don't come in with an expectation of a symmetry of minds. Like you have to, they're very patient. They don't start yelling, like you said, across the table because they already understand that and made peace with the idea that at the end of the day, you might both have different realities. And that's okay because you can respect each other, but you're trying to get to a place where you teach them exactly what you see. All right. And then the fourth one is learning, being able to be humble enough to understand that within the context of a relationship, oftentimes your partner is offering to you something that most people won't bother with, and that's feedback. And so your partner will actually explain something to you, and being humble enough to be able to say, you know what, maybe I don't know everything. Maybe there is something for me to take on, some place where I'm emotionally immature in this relationship, and being able to lower your guard and take in what they say and kind of consider it so that you can become a better version of yourself for the relationship and for the partner.
I like something you said early. Imagine or get your partner to get on the same side of the table
Yeah.
as you get and take on the problem like you're going at the problem.
Yes.
That's pretty cool when you can visualize
Oh,
it.
it's powerful. Instead of you against me, it's we against the problem. It's thinking in terms of we. Whenever you're in a relationship and you're in a fight, when you do fight or flight, when you want to leave the relationship, that's a very me-centric kind of idea. You know what? Forget you. I'm going this way, right? And it's usually because, again, they feel very like abandoned in their reality. Like your reality doesn't matter to me anymore, right? So being able to think in terms of we and staying and repairing the relationship and actually saying, this is important to me and I want to understand where you're coming from. And then when you do understand, even if you don't agree, saying, I get it, I understand, and validating their perspective, that will go a long way, even if they don't get their way or you don't get their way. Oftentimes just being able to understand that your partner has good intentions for you and understands and cares about your reality is enough.
It's okay to have a standoff at the OK Corral.
Yes.
All right. This is a great show. I love that. Good information. And hopefully it'll teach a lot of people how to be on the same side of the table.
Yes.
All right. Thank you, Debbie. We'll see you again next week for another very exciting programs of Good Vibes. Have a good day.